All right, we're live, guys. Hopefully everybody's audio is working today.
No issues.
Yeah, we got several of you here right at the start. We've got Andrew and Climby, Alistair, Chris. How you guys doing this fine Sunday afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where everybody's at?
Yeah, doing all right on this late evening.
Yeah.
Not quite morning yet.
Yeah, had to switch up the time a little bit again. I had like 7 or 8 Sunday mornings in a row where I was able to, do those Sunday morning chats, which was really a nice time slot. The last 3 Sundays in a row I had to work. Actually, I was off work today, but I went in on my day off at 7 a.m. this morning. Just got home about an hour ago. Then realized, the Saints were playing, like the afternoon time slot, so I turned on that and watched like the last 30 minutes of that first half where they look like they're whipping up on the LA Rams pretty good, so I'm not sad about missing the second half of that. It looks like they got that under control. So,
hello.
Hey, Christopher, was that you?
Yep, yeah. That was me.
Okay. And we got.
But I was able to get with you during the evening. My evening plans fell out, so.
All right. In the chat. Yeah, Dan is also here. Just quickly in the chat, we had a few people that were chatting with me beforehand. Faustino was in the chat a little early, about half an hour early. He was asking me to take a look at the distribution Partis. I have looked at Partis once before on the channel. Partis Deepen Edition. It was 6-7 months ago. I think I did it on a live stream. So I didn't go into depth on it, but I did take a look at it before on the channel. I might have to take a look at it again sometime soon, though. It's been a while. Let's see, who else? Several people actually were in the chat. Yeah, Go Saints. Yeah, Slide mentions he's watching my Saints kick his Rams' butt. Yeah, well, there's still the second half to play. But I don't expect the Saints to collapse in the second half at home. That's not usually what they do. Usually they collapse when the game begins. Like if they're going to lay an egg, they start laying an egg right at the beginning. They usually don't wait till the end to do it. So.
I really liked your video about your video production in your office there. That was a really good video.
Yeah, I'll quite enjoy that as well.
Yeah, people have been asking me to make that video for months. I get requests all the time about that. So I thought, I'd do that when I put it up on Patreon, a week early. Let some of the patrons check that out. And everybody, good feedback on it. A lot of people were really interested. A lot of people seemed like the general response I got was, wow, I didn't know it was that difficult to make a YouTube video, basically. There's more to it than, just, talking into a camera. So,
one complaint I have is Kden Live renders so slow. And I've heard other people complain about it too. Pizza says it runs much faster on Windows.
Yeah, I don't run Windows, so I don't know how it compares, but Kden Live, by default, does not use all of your processors.
No, it doesn't. OpenShot does. OpenShot will do a 10-minute video in 3 minutes.
Yeah, Kden Live will do that too. You have to go and set Kden Live to use all your cores of your processor, though. So make sure, I forget exactly where I'd have to open up Kden Live, but in your settings, there's a option to make it use multiple cores of your processor.
Yeah, it says it's experimental and it really doesn't powerhouse like OpenShot does. But OpenShot has its bugs too, and it's OpenShot really working on trying to make that a really good distribution of a product.
Yeah, OpenShot could be a good project, but right now it is very buggy.
It is. It's buggy.
It tends to crash. I mean, to do what I do, I can't. Sometimes I'm on a deadline to get these things published, and I can't have programs crashing.
Right.
Sometimes I wait an hour and a half for a video to render. If I wait an hour and a half, and then the program crashes, and then I have to start over.
The only criteria I used is I took 3 videos, glued them together, and compared each software package to which one performed faster.
Yeah.
That's
now we do have other options other than Kdenlive though, and OpenShot. I've used PaTV in the past. It's not that fully featured, not like Kdenlive, but it seems solid. I've rendered some video in PaTV, which is one of the GNOME apps. It's a video editor GNOME works on. Nothing special. We have the DaVinci Resolve out there. Never used that. It's not free and open source software.
I've tried it,
but I hear good things about it.
Here's the thing, you can get it, and if you're lucky enough to get it to work without crashing in Linux, it's a really more than anything any one of us would need. But the thing is, if you want to actually make YouTube videos or anything like that, you got to pay them $250 for the codecs that go with it.
Right.
The H2 6.4 and 6.5, they don't come with it.
Well, to be honest, Kdenlive is more than any of us need. I don't know even 1% of all the things you can do with Kden. I mean, to be honest.
It doesn't have any post-processing, does it? You know, for like After Effects or anything like that.
Yeah. Kdenlive is actually really, I mean, for free and open source software, I mean, Kdenlive is fantastic. It's one of those. Yeah, Big Pod, you're good. We got you.
I found a way of quickly up videos. There was another video I watched about Kdenlive, and apparently you can make the videos, shrink the videos, but they remain as a cache, and use the cache instead of the thing, and it renders a lot faster after editing.
Yeah.
So
hey, Jacob, was that you?
Video,
yeah.
Show you.
Yeah, so everybody's audio's working good. We heard you, Jacob. So we're 9 for 9 so far on Pulse Audio.
I'm using no.
But yeah, Kdenlive is really, in my opinion, like the best thing going as far as any of the KDE suite of apps. I mean, that thing is almost professional quality. And again, free and open source software. I mean, you really can't complain about it. I know a lot of people really want more, but it's kind of like people complain about GIMP. GIMP is not as great as Adobe Photoshop. Well, you know what? You can pay that outrageous subscription to the Adobe suite of software if you want Photoshop, but you know what? GIMP is free. Free financially. It's also free as in freedom. So, and it's pretty close.
Okay,
yeah.
Kdenlive is miles away from Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
I use both and still don't know how you guys can use Kdenlive.
Quite easily. It does what we need to do, and to be honest, the results at the end of the day are not that far behind any of the big boys, because it's the same thing as what Derek was saying about GIMP and Photoshop. About 1% use anything near what either of them can do.
Right.
And
I mean,
I use Kdenlive, DaVinci.
I know a lot more about GIMP. I know a lot more about GIMP than I know Kdenlive. I've used GIMP for many years. Even before I used Linux, I was using GIMP. And I will tell you right now, I still don't know probably 10% of what GIMP can do.
I've used GIMP for many years, even before I used Linux.
Somebody needs to mute the stream audio. Make sure.
I still don't know probably 10% of what GIMP can do.
That was KPAX there. KPAX, we're going to have some bad feedback on the stream if you don't mute the stream audio and wear earbuds. So.
Well, I'm not wearing any earbuds, so. I've got a delay on my sound.
If you have a good microphone and directional speakers, you can actually have speakers, but that setup is quite expensive. I know a guy who has it.
I'm just using the laptop speakers and the microphone now.
You can actually have speakers, but that setup is quite expensive. I know a guy who has it.
I'm just using the laptop speakers and the microphone
still
now.
has feedback.
Yes, we're going to have to mute KPAX for a little bit until he gets that worked up. Yeah, and you mentioned it's expensive, Big Pod. None of the crowd here, I don't think any of us, spend a lot of money on hardware. I know I'm cheap. I typically try to spend as little. Yeah, so. You know, there's that joke that us Linux users, especially, we're thrifty. I mean, the reason we're using Linux is because it's free. You know, Windows users like to call us freetards.
That's what it is.
That's going a little too far. I mean, we do buy stuff, but yeah, we like to save a buck here and there when we can. So,
but what we get for value,
yeah, that's true.
$0, you know, you can't complain.
We don't want to depend on just one company for an operating system. We like to shop the market.
Speaking of companies and your operating system, thoughts on Red Hat, IBM and Red Hat? Now that we've had about a week to digest that news.
Start again.
It's going to be quite good because it's IBM will jump ahead in the cloud space as soon as they buy Red Hat, because Red Hat has a lot of back-end services to a lot of the big boys in the cloud space, so they're going to jump straight up there.
No doubt that is going to be good.
Listings like that'd be amazing for them, and it's not something IBM have been very good at doing, is cloud space, although they've been doing cloud space for the last 20-30 years or whatever. They've never impacted it.
Right.
So
no doubt this. Yeah, no doubt this is good news for IBM. I don't think anybody doubts that, because instantly they're a major player. You're right in that space. You know, a lot of people have questions. How will this affect Red Hat? Because Red Hat, you know, was on this real uptick the last couple of years. I mean, they were doing good things, and you know, you always wonder when somebody new is in charge. You know, are they going to keep that same growth, or you know, for example, I always make fun of when Microsoft acquires a company. You know, that's usually when it dies. You know?
Hello.
Yeah.
Well,
hello.
I'm not mistaken. Red Hat is on the board foundation of Linux, aren't they?
Yes. Well, they're. I'm sure they're a platinum member for the Linux Foundation.
And then that for IBM, that would be a really great thing. They'd have already.
IBM were components of Linux for a very long time. That was the first one. Need to have TV adverts, as I recall, for Linux. Of a little boy, if I remember quite well.
Yeah, IBM has been supporting Linux as a company really since near the beginning. I mean, even back in the 90s, before Linux and open source was anywhere near mainstream like it is now, IBM was a big supporter. So this kind of makes sense for them as a company. As far as, Red Hat's definitely one of the biggest contributors to the Linux kernel, which now I'm sure is going to stay the same. IBM, I'm sure, is going to still have those employees that are paid to work on the kernel, still being paid to work on the kernel. It's not like, okay guys, no longer contribute to the free Linux anymore. You know, we're gonna now make a closed source operating system. You got to work on that. You know, nothing like that's gonna happen. This is, you know.
I actually think that there could be a problem for desktop because main thing why IBM, at least that seems why IBM bought, it's the cloud part of the IBM, Red Hat, cloud part of the Red Hat, because it's quite strong there, and even if you look at the reports, Red Hat is supposed to join the cloud part of the IBM, so I'm kind of worried for desktop.
Well, that's why Microsoft bought into the foundation, because they wanted to be part of the Linux for their Azure cloud services. Yeah. This has been the year where a lot of companies have just bought right into Linux.
Well, it's not like they're buying into Linux. I mean, Microsoft, they contribute a lot to the Linux kernel because of Azure. I mean, they're the ones that are contributing all the code to the kernel regarding Azure. It's because it benefits them as a company. I mean, sure, it's great that they're contributing to open source, but it helps Microsoft. I mean, ultimately, their reasons are selfish, just like when Red Hat contributes to the kernel. You know, they're not doing it for the greater good. They're doing it because it makes Red Hat money at the end of the day.
Because at the end of the quarter, they get plus from that. They get green numbers.
From the interviews that have been seen, though, it looks more like IBM is more interested in what the cloud services that Red Hat can provide. And as long as they don't take that away from Red Hat.
And Big Pod mentions it's not about the desktop. Really, it's not. IBM is all about, you know, buying Red Hat for, you know, the server space, cloud space.
Gluster, Rahel, Ansel, those stuff are probably gonna be evolving quite a lot, but desktop, I think it will stand quite still. Except on, maybe it will get evolved in like server operating system on one part, because it's actually quite integral to many of the services.
Right.
Cluster either works on Red Hat, Enterprise Linux, or Fedora. Same with their virtualization server and all the other cloud stuff they have work on either Fedora or their Linux desktop.
Now, there have been some questions as how this news was going to affect Fedora. I don't think it's really going to affect Fedora that much. I mean, Fedora, for the most part, is a community project. I know Red Hat is behind Fedora, but it's kind of like Ubuntu is really a community project, even though, you know, Canonical is behind Ubuntu. But so I don't think Fedora users have. Yeah,
Ubuntu.
Yeah, I don't think Fedora users have anything to fear by this. You're still going to have Fedora, so
Fedora is probably quite safe.
Yes, I would think so.
More interested in seeing what CentOS is going to do. They're their own fork, but they rely heavily on the Red Hat kernel.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
DaVinci Resolve also works best on CentOS. They matter of fact push it.
Yeah, actually, almost only works on CentOS, and others have a lot of problems.
Well, that's interesting that it works best on CentOS, considering CentOS usually is seen as a server operating system. Very few people run CentOS like on the desktop. So that's,
I believe because it's not free. It's not like it doesn't have that free mentality. Because I say it's not free, and because that they chose it because it has best support for codecs and stuff like that.
Can I say something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Back, 2015, I worked for a company. I'm from a scientific background, where the hardware was actually run by CentOS. And, you know, I've left that environment. So I work for pharmaceutical, so I'm a scientist. And those machines were actually all run by either Windows or CentOS. I'm slightly concerned that CentOS is going to get left in the background by this. And basically, it kind of was left in the background when we had a system which is called NMR. That's nuclear magnetic resonance, and that's a way of analyzing stuff, right? It would be too hard to explain, but basically analyzing stuff. The software in the background was either Windows or CentOS, Community Enterprise Operating System. And not one of those pharmaceutical companies upgraded that software based on CentOS. They upgraded it through the Windows stuff, but they never upgraded the CentOS stuff because it ran perfectly. But I'm just slightly concerned what's going to happen with CentOS, basically, as somebody has mentioned. I don't know. It's a bit weird.
No,
well, I mean, like, because Linux is GPL and Red Hat releases on GPL and all that, CentOS will still be using the Red Hat stuff as they have done before.
Will, but it's always
they can fork it.
Problem is if the Hell gets left behind, that then it will have big impact on CentOS. Actually,
sorry, I couldn't hear. I can't hear you. Say that again.
If Rahel, that's Enterprise Linux.
I know Ralph.
Gets left behind, it will leave big impact on CentOS.
Probably,
I'm just thinking that CentOS will just fork itself and just go,
It's already
you know. a slightly different direction, you know.
Well, there's a pretty good community behind CentOS anyway. I mean,
Exactly.
even without the backing of Red Hat and IBM, I think that project would probably continue.
Yeah, I mean, in the working environment, you can buy from CentOS help from you can buy help from them. Basically, you, unlike, you know, where you're paying into a subscription, you get CentOS, and then you can decide whether you're going to buy into help or not. So if you have a problem with your software, it could either cost you an awful lot of money to get help with it or not. So it's just, I don't know, the community enterprise operating system, I kind of feel it's going to get left behind by the whole thing, to be honest.
Are you worried that this is a bigger trend, like not just involving IBM and Red Hat, but just Linux in general is becoming too corporate, like all the major players?
Correct.
I mean, pretty soon Canonical is going to get bought.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's Microsoft or Microsoft buys SUSE, you know, all the big players, they're becoming these big corporate, you know, multinational conglomerates. You know.
Yeah,
that's where I was kind of going earlier.
They're kind of merging into kind of this one piece of thing, which is, I don't know whether it's doing any good or bad. I'm pretty sure it's going to be bad for people who are, or sorry, companies that are actually running Linux and wanting to do it properly. And these are pharmaceutical companies. These aren't companies that don't have money to throw, that don't, have tons of money to throw about. These guys have huge amounts of money, and yet they're still using Linux because they believe in it and because the software is really good. However, they're, instead of going to RHEL, they get CentOS, or sorry, instead of Red Hat, they're getting CentOS because it's cheaper for them to do so, because they know CentOS or the Linux operating system will run and run and run, and it's very rarely that they have to get any help for that problem that might come along. Whereas if they're in a Windows operating system, they know they're going to have a lot of problems later down the bloody line.
Just quickly, in the chat, Big Daddy Linux. Appreciate the super chat, Rocco over at Big Daddy Linux. I'm sure all you guys here know Rocco over at Big Daddy. Make sure you check him out every Saturday night. He does a great live show every Saturday night.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Ricky.
Good evening, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Do you guys think maybe that that Linux in general is becoming less about volunteers, about the community volunteers, and it's becoming all about corporate money now? I mean, 80% of the people that contribute to the kernel are actually paid to contribute.
God, I hope not. I really hope not.
Coming down to the end of the year,
absolutely.
It certainly is getting that feeling.
Yeah. I mean, most of the people that contribute to the kernel, most of the people that contribute to the kernel are paid employees of Google, Microsoft, IBM, Red Hat, so, I mean, those are companies that actually pay people to contribute to the kernel for their own companies. I mean, that's really who contributes to the kernel. I mean, there's a small percentage of just your average volunteer, but it's a small percentage now. So
I think by necessity, for it to grow into anything other than just kind of a hobbyist thing, you really need to have that kind of a backing to be accepted.
Yeah.
And the major problem I'm having right now, I just had a bit of an argument with our director for the museum here, and he wants to go strictly Windows, and because Linux is too difficult and everything. I can't figure out what he's saying difficult, because other than the fact that he has to put a username and password in there, he's saying well, you don't need to. We don't need that kind of security around here. I'm like, well, we kind of do. Yeah.
Just support our login, job done. What?
So are you saying that Linux has got to become a corporate identity rather than being the free and open source thing? It has to be.
Not necessarily, but to be accepted by the major players, major corporations, the ones that are going to be buying this en masse, buying the equipment en masse, you really got to have it so that they are.
Yeah,
you're talking about
corporate name behind it, so it actually seems.
So we can sell it. So we can sell it better to the.
Can be sold, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
What do you mean by like it's already got corporate back? It's corporate backing for like server stuff and cloud stuff, right? Like
well, overall, we have less than 5% of the market, and
well, not in the server market. Yeah, not in the server market. It's got a lot more than that in the server.
Huge overall. The desktop, I think, is about 3.5 at the minute.
Yeah.
So it has grown in popularity over the last few years.
But here's the thing: we don't really need the desktop market share to ever be bigger than that because of how popular Linux is on the server market. Those of us that want to use it on the desktop, we're still good because we benefit from how popular it is in the server space.
Popularity breeds contempt.
Well, my feelings for the desktop, I think Linux software is the best and the most abundant it's ever been.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, it's better now than it's ever been. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Right.
To just look at driver support 5 years ago. Look at driver support 10 years ago. I mean, we're definitely keep making major improvements. So 10 years from now, who knows? So.
But if Linux wants to get corporate customers, a lot of corporate, they will need to get the shit together, the community, because what is it called, the whole freedom thing really doesn't actually give it a plus, because it makes it a bit more scary for professional software developers, because a lot of stuff get somewhere left behind that free, and like for video editing, codecs are a big problem, and that's why I believe Adobe doesn't want to create Linux version, because there is no official support for many codecs, and even those that are, you must install them by yourself, and that creates big problems.
Yeah,
that's why I read in one of the interviews that they do not want to create Linux version, because problems with codecs in main part, the freedom that doesn't actually work well, and I think in future could bring even worse results. No professional software besides the open source one.
I mean, Adobe has supports for all their stuff for Mac. How hard would it be for them to create, Linux clients?
Yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult.
It wouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
Problems are codecs, because even though many of them are proprietary, and those are either hated by the community, or on many operating systems you have problems installing them.
Well, yeah, but Adobe's not going to be free and open source software anyway.
Yeah.
Just like the codec, so you're going to have to, like in Ubuntu, you'd have to install it through a PPA anyway. You're not going to find it in the repos.
But you've got to realize there are people who, well, I suppose I am sort of one of them, where I don't want Linux to become too popular, because the minute it becomes too popular, it becomes under the spotlight like any of the other operating systems, and then it becomes something different.
Yeah. I don't think we ever have to worry about Linux becoming too popular on the desktop, because as long as Linux is not offered pre-installed on machines out there, it's never going to be popular. I mean, the big thing was forever. I mean, when I first started using Linux full-time on the desktop about 10 years ago, the big thing was Linux sucks because you cannot game on Linux. There are no games, which 10 years ago, there were 0 games for Linux. Now we have 5,000. Now we have all the games we want to play. And guess what? Still nobody's using Linux. So.
Yeah. We should understand that gamers are actually not that computer inclined.
It'll only take Windows to do something like screw up your files. Oh, didn't that happen? Remove stuff from your desktop. Oh, didn't that happen? And
unzip your zip files.
Zip files, correct. And people are getting really backed off with it. They really are.
It's still going to be a small percentage.
It's like complaining about the. It's like complaining about telecoms. Everybody knows telecoms are awful and evil, but nobody can do anything about it because of the way the market is structured. You just have to live with it.
Let me tell you, I talk so bad about Google as a company, yet I still cannot get rid of my Android phone, and obviously I can't get rid of YouTube. Now, I've gotten rid of everything else Google related, but still, I can't get rid of that phone, and I've got to be on YouTube. So.
Question about what's the market share for Mac OS?
Usually around 6%, 6-7%.
Okay.
Is what they
because
usually.
It's more. I think it's more than that.
Is it more than that these days?
I believe it's around 10 to.
Is it?
Yeah, it's around about. It's something like 12 to 16%, somewhere around the two-digit mark.
Yeah. All right. That might have been the Steam reports. I know Mac is probably Mac is underrepresented probably on those, but yeah.
Because here's the thing. I think getting like maybe 12% is too big, but getting a good percentage of what Mac has as a percentage of desktop seems like an okay goal for what desktop Linux could do. Because in a sense, I think they're both similar and different in that I think Mac OS it's geared towards a certain kind of user, and
naive
who has too much money to burn.
You have to have a lot of money. You have to love Starbucks.
Yeah, but I'll say that many of Apple users don't have much money to burn, because I see I have only one who has a normal PC laptop where I walk around. All of them are Apple, and you're not cool if you don't have an Apple.
Yeah.
Wasn't OS 10 still a BSD? Flavor of one of the BSDs.
Yeah, Mac was built off of FreeBSD.
Mac is built from Darwin. From a version of Darwin BSD.
But it's now so different from FreeBSD that it is its own entity almost.
Yeah, it's not like that compatible.
In fact, the code
it's not compatible in any way.
Different from FreeBSD, but it was built on FreeBSD. Yeah.
Right.
Do people want Linux to be greater on the desktop because of ego, or is there an advantage to it?
I can answer that. Yes.
Yes. That, but a lot is also ego.
Yeah, most of it is ego. Like I said, I don't think it matters too much if we ever grow much bigger than we're at, because it's so big on mobile. It's so big in the server space. Linux is never going away. I mean, we're the most popular operating system on the planet. I mean, that's just a fact. We're not the most popular operating system on laptops. We're not going to be that, but we're the most popular operating system on the planet. So.
As long as I can get software that gets the job done, I don't care if I'm a stepson, a redheaded stepchild of Serverville.
I do want to make a quick correction. I said we're not popular on laptops. That is changing. Chromebooks are blowing up, and Chromebooks are Linux.
Yeah.
They were based off a Gen 2 kernel. They built that thing on a Gen 2 kernel. You can install deb packages on Chrome OS now. So.
But originally, here's the thing. This is so funny, and I remember trying to send a question to Google. Chrome OS was originally based on Ubuntu.
Yeah, Chromium is still based on Ubuntu.
It started with Ubuntu. So the Ubuntu operating system was Chrome OS. And then there was this huge, massive change, and Google suddenly decided, right, we can't be bothered with Ubuntu and Mark Shuttleworth and his team, so let's go Gen 2 and build our own. So that's what happened. And the Chrome that we know now is obviously Gen 2 based, although, you look at the way it's built, it's really weird. You look at the partitioning and the way everything is done, it's really strange the way they do stuff. But
it looks like they wanted to build it.
It's not Gen 2 based.
It's really a hybrid between Debian based and Gen 2 based.
Gen 2.
Yeah,
it's like they wanted to compile everything. They wanted their own kernel. They didn't want the pre-built Ubuntu kernel, so they used the Gen 2 kernel. But they still want to use deb packages. So they hacked it in such a way you can still install Debian packages, because they had been using Ubuntu and Debian-based systems. Even at Google headquarters, a lot of their machines were running Debian and Ubuntu over the years.
Yeah.
So
currently they're on their own version of Debian, but they used to use their own version of Ubuntu.
Yeah.
For a couple of years, they switched to Debian.
So that's why they kind of made that decision to kind of force Chrome OS to use deb packages, even though you would think it doesn't make sense being a Gen 2 system. So, yeah.
But I know Chromium OS is on Ubuntu. It's Ubuntu based.
The Chromium OS?
Yeah, it's Ubuntu based.
Yeah, we have Chromebooks at our school, and there's like so much security and so much extensions. Like, there's this extension called Hapara, and they can see whatever you're doing. Like, even if you're at home with your Chromebook, they can see it all the time.
The Chromium OS, it's still Jitsi based, but the reason why the deb packages run is because the Crostini VM that they're using for Linux is based on Debian stable.
That's a good point. Yep. I forgot about Christine.
I'm an Arch, and I can install deb packages in Arch. It's not any big deal to do that, And I'm sure, if you run a pure Gen 2 based system, which I have in the past as well, it's dead easy to do that. Should you want to? So whatever.
You can compile any kind of package manager into any distro.
Right.
Of course you can.
Code, so you can basically switch and swap if that's your choosing, if you want to syntax.
But here's the thing, why would you do that? Like he mentioned, using Debian packages in Arch. Well, Arch has its own repositories.
I was waiting for you to ask that.
And the same thing with Gen 2. Going back to Gen 2 has huge repos. Why are you installing deb packages?
But occasionally, there are packages which aren't available. Even in the AUR, which is probably one of the largest package managers on the bloody planet.
You get a lot that don't work.
Even you can't get something, so you might want to install a deb package. And if you go onto the Arch Wiki, they actually recommend you not doing it because the package can become unstable. However, you can do it. That's all I'm saying. You can do it if you want to.
Yeah. And that's one of the big selling points for Chrome OS is that everything runs in isolation. That's why they have such a weird partition structure.
Is that why is it all sandboxed?
Yeah, it's all sandboxed.
And that's why the Linux app run virtualized.
Right, gotcha. That's why I couldn't understand that. When you look at it, it looks like a bloody nightmare. When you see it. Right, okay. I didn't understand. Right, good. Excellent.
Yeah, just quickly, a response in the chat. Slide says, yeah, the Gentoo repos are big, but they're source code, not binaries. That's right. They're not pre-built binaries. You do have to compile them. No. So it is slower to install, but the point was the programs are there.
AUR is also not.
Yeah, it is. You compile from the AUR. Good point. Yep.
Yeah, you can. Yep.
Basically the same.
It is, yeah. If you've ever installed like FFmpeg from the AUR, it's going to take like an hour and a half, to compile that thing.
I actually keep what is it called?
Well, it depends.
My own repository of Arch programs from AUR.
Yeah,
I was just throwing that out there. Yeah,
already built and everything.
If you get the full FFmpeg, it will take up to an hour and a half to compile. Yep, and it takes bloody because I've done it.
Anyway, I need to get going, guys. I'll see you later. Okay.
All right, Rick. Thanks for stopping.
You check
later.
Yeah.
I've been finding about my typos there, BT.
I've found Ubuntu does not play very well with some deb packages. It will break your package updater.
Not all deb packages are the same. Some deb packages are actually created with Ubuntu in mind. Some of them are actually created with Debian in mind. So you might want to check it when you download.
Slightly different dependencies.
Specifically specify which distribution and actually which version you want the package to run on.
A deb package that was created for Debian 9 and a deb package created for Ubuntu 18.10 that just came out. Don't be surprised if they're not able to run on each other's distro. Yeah, so you're gonna have dependency problems.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
My video's frozen on this end. Is it frozen there?
Yeah, we don't see you. We just got your username up.
Okay.
Frosted.
Yeah.
Hey, Jacob.
But how does with the Mint's forking off of Debian? Is that gonna? How's that working with the package managers? Is that
you talking about their Mint edition?
Debian or Ubuntu's?
Are you asking about their Mint edition of Linux Mint?
Yeah.
Or I mean, the Debian edition of Linux Mint. They've been doing that for a number of years. Yeah, it's completely compatible with Debian. I think they base it on Debian stable. I haven't actually run it on my physical hardware, but basically that is kind of like their backup plan. They kind of keep that thing in the background. They don't really work on it. The devs over at Linux Mint, their focus is the main edition based on Ubuntu. But if anything were to ever happen to Ubuntu or Canonical, if Ubuntu went away, they would at least have a distro that they've kind of worked on based on Debian. They'd have a fallback plan. So
I used it for a little while. It's like Linux Mint Lite. It doesn't come with all the extra tools that Mint has, but it has the Cinnamon desktop, and it is really nice. It's functional and it's very stable.
Well, that's because when you base off of Ubuntu does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. When you base off of Debian, less so. As far as making it easy for you, right? So
Debian is very different from Ubuntu, and at the end of the day, I mean, I as an operating system between the two of them, I much prefer Debian over Ubuntu, primarily because Debian is more hands-on than Ubuntu is, and certainly I prefer the SID or SID, the unstable branch rather than even the testing, because I'm an Arch user, I'm used to things being a bit more so it's kind of cool. But the SID branch gives you a bit more up-to-date stuff. It's their kind of Arch version of Debian, so it'll give you much better drivers, more up-to-date stuff than the testing or stable branch. So yeah, love Debian. I love Debian.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Debian too. Long-time Debian user. Debian stable, but I've played with SID a lot over the years too.
Have you tried Seduction?
I have, yeah. I like Seduction.
Okay, who's got them in?
Seduction is fantastic as far as you want something Debian unstable, but pretty easy to install. Not that Debian unstable is hard to install.
No, it's great, yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that their desktops are a little more put together. I often install the LXD when I do Seduction because I like minimal. And that's fantastic, in my opinion. I haven't tried like some of the heavier stuff. I haven't, played with GNOME or KDE because that's not my thing. But yeah, I've tried both their XFC editions in the past.
You don't. So are you not a Qt person, or I mean, are you on the GTK side of things, or so? What about LXQT?
LXQ.
Now we have, Ubuntu moving towards which is LXQT now. So what's your?
I have nothing against it. It's just it hasn't. It's been kind of beta software until kind of recently. LXQt is really just starting to get to the point where I would say it's as good as LXDE, where that wasn't the case a few months ago. Certainly not a year ago.
It definitely wasn't. So terrible.
Yeah. I mean, just to try it out and test it, but to live in it, I like things that work. LXDE has just always worked. Now LXQt. Yeah, now is getting to the point. Yeah, I have no problems with it either.
So can I ask everyone, what's their favorite DE? What's your favorite desktop environment?
Yeah, good question. I don't like full desktop environments. I usually do window managers.
You like the window manager?
But I will answer the question. I'm not going to evade this. Full desktop environment. My favorite right now, Budgie.
Oh no! Like, okay.
Who would figure?
Good luck with that.
Man, that's mind-blinding.
I hate Budgie.
I just got hit with a phone book.
Why Budgie? What do you like about it?
It's simple. It's simple. It's intuitive. There's not much to it. It doesn't.
It's just GNOME 3 with a different kind of layout.
Yeah, it's sane, right? It's GNOME 3, but it's not all crazy like GNOME 3.
Well, yes, exactly. I agree, but
I don't have to install 18 extensions to get it to work like GNOME 3. I have a normal menu out of the box. Who would have thought? Wow.
Right. All right, the rest of you, what do you like? What's your?
I would say it's a tie between XFC and Mate.
Yeah, bro.
Although the best file manager is probably Dolphin on KDE.
Yeah. You see, you're waffling now. You see, I stuck to the question. I answered it.
Best file manager is Ranger.
Ranger?
Conqueror wins, just saying.
I think the thing about Ranger and any sort of, for those who don't know, it's basically what you call a TUI. It's basically a command line. You type it in the command line, and it's like going back into the 80s.
Ds, guys, not applications. Ds. We want Ds. So what's your favorite DE?
No.
Initially, obviously.
Somebody's bound to say GNOME.
Yeah, that was Big Bod. Yeah.
I just gave up on ICE.
Right.
I found out if I ran Conky and then tried to log out, I got the X window of death. Or maybe I should call it the X window, zombie X window.
Yeah.
That you cannot kill. I had to shut off with the power button.
Really? You couldn't get to a TTY prompt or anything?
No, I could not. Well,
wow.
No, I just
I
couldn't do anything about it. And that wouldn't necessarily, then stop running Conky. But I use Octave quite a bit. I'm retired, but my hobby is sort of playing with math and science programming and stuff. I use Octave. And if you do a plot in Octave and then try to save it as a JPEG or as a PDF, in XFCE it works beautifully, just as it should. In ICE, you have to do some extra steps, and actually the PDF save doesn't work at all as far as it gives you half of the plot.
I agree with you.
I just ended up going back to XFCE with some i3 just to be cool.
Are we about to go? Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, tiling window managers are kind of where I stay these days, but I have reasons for that because using multi-monitors.
I watched you doing your tiling window manager stuff, and it's, you know, I would love to get into it, but I don't understand. I just don't understand it, to be honest.
Well, I think the main idea of it is just like trying to get away from the mouse and just use the keyboard. Like I use i3 and I rarely ever touch the mouse. It's great.
But even beyond that, but even beyond that, you know, for what I do, like right now, you know, I have all three monitors. I have OBS on a monitor. I have the YouTube chat on a monitor. I have Zoom on the monitor. I have the Zoom chat. I have a web browser open. I have a terminal open, and I have to have them specific sizes on the monitor because, again, I'm capturing the Zoom window in OBS. So I have rules set up, you know, in tiling window managers. Zoom is always going to open on this monitor at this size, taking up this part of the screen. And that's just easy to do with tilers. They're set up to do that. I can have a key combination where it just puts all the windows where I want them. So when I'm ready to do this recording, everything's straight. With a floating window manager, I'd have to manually drag and size the windows.
So you
say
I get it right. All the time your hands are on the keyboard?
You can be, yeah. You could run completely just on the keyboard with a tiling window manager. They're designed that way, but you can also use the mouse. I can actually drag windows with the mouse. I can resize them with the mouse just as you do with a floating window manager. It's just I have to do like a key combination. Like I have to do
I've got to
super and the mouse to resize a window, and then it'll let me.
I've got to try this. I really have to.
I only use i3 with the tabbed mode. And in tab mode, everything is sort of full screen with some minimal tabs on top, and that's nice for laptops or netbooks.
Yeah, to be honest, most of the time I'm full screen because I have three monitors. I'll have, you know, browser full screen, terminal full screen. And it's not like I've got like 9 things on one monitor. You know, it's
Yeah, but in the evening when I'm sitting in my easy chair with 1 or 2 chihuahuas in my lap, I'm using the mouse, and not using the keyboard. So XFCE does it all for me, basically, now.
Just quickly, I'm going to answer one of the questions in the chat. Dan Doobie asked, do I like Qtile, which I'm using now, the Qtile window manager, better than Xmonad? Xmonad is better features, it's been around forever, it's faster. Xmonad is very, very difficult to set up because it's written and configured in a programming language called Haskell. Raise your hand here, anybody that knows Haskell. Yeah, me neither.
Of it, like...
yeah.
It's a
one person
language that's
wait.
rage in academia.
Yeah.
Qtile is a tiling window manager. It's written and configured in Python. Raise your hand if you know some Python.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. That's why I'm using Qtile.
Honestly, I disagree with all of you guys. I'm a GNOME user.
Okay.
I'm sorry if you don't like that, but I'm just used to it because I'm a Mac user.
It's whatever you like.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whatever works for your work.
I'm a KDE. I use KDE, you know.
You're the person that I want to talk to. Plasma has taken away the thing where you can open Dolphin and Kate as root. So what the hell is going on there? So from
wait.
GNOME, you have to install a different file manager to open as root, and it's a pain in the bloody hole. Really
but is this any different? Is this any different from GNOME taking away desktop icons or neutering their file manager to the point it's useless? I mean,
well, you can still open the file manager as root. You know,
I mean,
the important thing. You know,
like we can talk about the KDE guys doing some.
That's really incredibly important.
Or you can use OpenSUSE. They kind of hacked it to get it to work.
Yeah, that's true. As a matter of fact, when I mentioned GNOME, Ubuntu was doing that with GNOME. What they would do is put an old version of Nautilus in the new version of GNOME, so you still have.
In Ubuntu 18.10, the version of the version of Nautilus was 3.26, and it's 3.30 on 18.10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you can actually enable it through an extension. There's an extension you can install that adds the icons back. I don't know why they're just not doing that. That would make more sense.
I've been known to use like GNOME Disk in XFCE, and I was married to KDE for the longest time, but I've since put Cinnamon on this thing, and I'm liking the Cinnamon on Fedora. And, it's really rock solid.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Cinnamon, mainly because it looks like Windows, and I don't like Windows.
Well, that's why I have it on here.
Well, you're going to find that a lot of people came from Windows, so that's what they're used to. You came from a Mac, so that goes with GNOME, right?
Yeah.
I came from Windows, like much more easier than Windows in any way.
I would imagine the appealing thing about Cinnamon to most people is the fact that it is very Windows-like. It's that same workflow, that same Windows paradigm. That's kind of the appeal to it. Beyond that, yeah, Cinnamon ain't all that. It's kind of heavy. It's kind of almost GNOME-like as far as how sluggish it can be on especially older machines. That's my biggest complaint with it. Other than that, Cinnamon's fine.
It's funny how GNOME ran flawlessly on my old 10-year-old laptop, so I don't know what you guys having problems with GNOME.
You know, in the past that KDE 4 was the biggest RAM hog on the planet. Now that it's gone to Plasma 5, Plasma Plasma 5 comes in and around the same RAM as XFCE, yet GNOME is like startup.
I've got to go. I'll jump on later.
2 gigabytes.
Okay, bye.
All right. See you, Quinn.
Bye,
See you, Jacob.
Actually, I prefer Ranger to the GUI file managers, no matter where I am.
Yeah, same.
Actually.
Start programs. It's pretty easy to use.
Yeah.
The thing I like about Ranger is I have a script, and it's just like a shortcut script, so I can put anything I want in there, and it will sync it across all my programs. So like in Ranger, if I have a file and I just press like MWA or whatever, it will move it to my wallpapers folder or whatever.
Well, Ranger is kind of designed for like advanced users. I mean, it's for people that want to configure that thing, you know, put all your shortcuts, have your own custom scripts. Where something like Dolphin or Nautilus are there for anybody to use. Maybe that's not even their machine. They can open the file manager and use it right away and get done what they need to get done. Where
I never remove all the GUI file managers. I still need one.
Oh yeah. That's a matter of fact. If most desktop environments you can't can you even get rid of Dolphin if you're running Plasma? I know you can't get rid of Nautilus and GNOME.
Yeah, you can get rid of Dolphin and just use Conqueror.
And the best one to install is probably PC Man FM. And
I love that one.
I like that one too. Yeah.
So I know unless GNOME has changed recently, and Nautilus used to control the desktop, you know, the icons on the so you couldn't really get rid of Nautilus.
Right.
So you were stuck, even if you wanted to install PC Man FM or something else, Nautilus had to be there.
So Plasma's about KDE, it's more modular.
Plasma's a lot more modular than it used to be. So
it's a lot more modular.
It's not intrinsic to the other bits the way it used to be. So you can get rid of bits without it affecting the desktop.
I like Midnight
I'm an icon guy. I gotta have icons all over.
Midnight Commander's a fine.
Midnight Commander's brilliant.
It's not bad. Yeah. I've tried it.
I do like Midnight Commander.
Kind of old-fashioned, but once I found Ranger, I sort of stopped using it.
Well, it reminds me a lot of Norton Commander back in the early DOS days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that might have been what they were going after. Yeah, that same kind of look and feel.
One thing I found about that I couldn't do with that was harder with Ranger that I could do with Dolphin. This sounds very petty, but it's basically I could, if I wanted to move a bunch of images to various folders, and you could do it in Dolphin. You have to set a few figures that will do there. But in Dolphin, I could just see the images live, and then I could push them wherever I wanted into using split screen. And I just found it was much faster with Dolphin because it's right there.
Well,
whereas,
Christopher, you can do that in other file.
Yeah, I don't.
You know, you can get the split screen within PCman FM. You can actually in Arch there is a Thunar extended which gives you the split screen version as well. So you can actually do that within quite a few files.
Yeah, I know you could do it in Kaja, I believe, as well.
Yeah, Kaja does that as well. It's fab. Yeah, the Mate file manager, brilliant. Yep.
Space FM is another one I think you can do that. I haven't used it lately.
Correct.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yep.
Like in that scenario, I would just open up a Tmux terminal and then have 2 Rangers running, and then select all the files and then just copy them over, because I have W3M live preview, so I can see all them. So
yeah, no, you can do it. It's just I feel like Dolphin
sometimes you need graphical.
Yeah.
I just open 2 windows of Nautilus.
Sometimes you need graphical.
Yeah, just quickly, guys, in the chat, Randy is mentioning when I left before halftime, the Saints were up 35-14 over the Rams. It's now 35-35, a tie in the fourth quarter. He says, I hope I have a TV on in here. I don't, but I do have like the ESPN kind of like live bug going. It shows me every play that's going on. So.
Oh, boy.
Hey,
Never know what
thanks for having me on. I'm gonna run and have some dinner. Thanks, DT.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, bye, Paul.
Okay.
All right, Paul.
Bye, Paul.
They head out too.
All right, guys. Yeah, I mentioned the game's tied, so go watch the fourth quarter, guys. I'll catch it on ESPN this evening.
I don't watch American football. I don't.
Well, of course not. Yeah, you're good on this, Big Pod. We'll discuss your football on another episode.
I'm
a Bill fan, so I got self-loathing going on or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got a hardware question.
Yeah.
How many of you guys are currently using SSDs?
Yep, I am.
Yeah, that's all I get. Yeah.
Do you ever trim them?
Yes.
No.
Manually?
Probably will.
No, not manually.
I do my trims manually once a week, but I don't set them up.
Now, the Ubuntu team says all the way back to 1604, it's kind of baked in the underlying of the system that they trim the SSD weekly.
Right.
Another option.
Probably as a cron job.
Yeah, a cron file's another thing.
Yeah.
I had a blank SSD, or I had one that a system crashed on it yesterday, and I put Manjaro on it. Right after I put Manjaro on it, I ran the fs trim command. It returned 982 gigabytes of data trimmed.
Jeez.
That's a lot of data. So
on a 1 terabyte drive.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
that is all your drive.
Yeah, which makes me wonder because, I got a letter back or an email back from Western Digital, and they said that these things are supposed to be trimmed very frequently.
Did you go through with the trim?
Yes.
And is everything okay?
It didn't repair anything, but it opened up a lot of space, because what happens is you get blocks.
Yeah.
When the block that has the data on it can be targeted to be overwritten, but nothing can overwrite it until something actually zeroes out all the cells, and then it can be written over again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the trim's for.
Is that available in Debian?
It's available on any. It's available on any operating system. Period.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. That's standard.
So
Windows does it religiously.
You can trim your SSD no matter whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux, and it doesn't matter what system you're on.
I'm doing it while I'm on Windows because I don't know why.
Just quickly, guys. The super chats, I got a couple. Slide super chat, he says, let's go Rams. I'm not going to acknowledge that. Big Daddy Rocco says, let's go Saints. I will acknowledge that. So thank you, Rocco. All right, back to trim.
Let's go. Whoever's better. I don't understand what they're doing.
Is it time for dinner, Andrew?
Bell has rung here, Derek, so I'm going to head out too.
All right. Thanks for hanging out.
You take care.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye.
The bottom line from Western Digital is they say if you don't trim your SSD, or if it does not get trimmed, it will run at half the speed that it's supposed to.
That's a load of rubbish.
Whoa, no way. No.
No way. That is a load.
Well, if you think about it, it will, because Linux Hex or whatever operating system has to zero out the cells it wants to use before it can write anything on top of them.
Not really, actually.
If they're already zeroed out,
that's actually not true.
No, it's not.
When you delete, after a while, it actually overwrites, as far as I'm aware.
Correct. Yeah.
You have to zero first, though, before you can overwrite.
No, at least what teacher last time we listened about SSDs, it's similar, it's the same as the, what is it called, the hard drive. If the drive is full of data, it will just find an empty space, or space is supposed to be empty by the controller that says it's empty. It will just change the data to whatever it has to be. You don't have to zero it out.
But that's a hard drive. They work differently, and they have different firmware on them.
SSDs were the same. Controller controls everything, and if the data is stored, it'll automatically zero it out.
Not according to what Western Digital has to say.
That's actually depending on
listen to everything. Don't listen to everything.
First of all, as he said, don't listen to everything creator of the thing set. Second of all, it's depending on the firmware, how the firmware works in controller, and third of all, it's also dependent on how operating system works.
Yeah.
And
I typically buy.
What is really good about the new SSDs, and I mentioned this in Steve's, aka English Bob's, Wednesday night's last hangout, was that the SSDs are so more resilient than they used to be. Yeah. So the read writes on them, because I'd mentioned about, the last thing that you really want installing a distro is a swap file with an SSD, because obviously it's going to read write quite a bit more than it normally would. But actually, it doesn't really matter anymore, because the SSDs are they're so much better than they used to be. And they
still got a long way to go.
You'll probably get 5 to 7 years out of an SSD, whereas before they were crap. So that's what I've been told.
When you first had an SSD, you had to put all your var logs and everything kind of spinning Rust because of the same reason. It's constantly writing and reading from that file.
But the whole point of a swap file, I mean, we don't even need swap partitions or swap files anymore.
Not really. Not really.
Major, super hardware. Like, I mean, I have a System 76, and it's a bloody monster.
If you need to hibernate, it kind of makes sense. But like on my desktops, half the time when I do installs, I don't even bother with a swap.
Exactly. I don't either.
Yeah.
Oh, this came on because
I do on the one machine, not on the other.
I kept experiencing distro crash after distro crash. They'd last a week or two, and then they just crashed, and I couldn't get into them anymore. So I was panning for answers.
Yeah. Just quickly, thanks for the super chat, Chris. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we've got you. Audio's right.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Hey, you guys ever heard of F2FS file system?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was trying to get it to work for the longest time, but it was like this drawn out process for getting it to work with Ubuntu, so I gave up on it, but it's supposed to be really good for flash memory.
Yeah.
It is. Tried it in Arch?
Have you tried it in Arch Linux? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Try it in Arch. It'll work.
Yeah. I've never actually tried it on anything myself. But yeah, I hear good things about it as far as, you're right, for flash memory. It's a good file system.
Really good, yeah.
ext4 works enough well, so...
If you want stable, that's where you need to be. If you want the most stable file system, you need the one that your distro ships by default, which on most is going to be Extend4. So
yeah, I use it, and it works quite okay. So
what about ButterFS?
It's not stable. I mean, I wouldn't use it like to save critical data on it.
Well, FreeBSD uses comes by default with ButterFS.
Yeah, ButterFS.
Yeah. So all BSD are all ButterFS as far as I remember.
No, there's ZFS. Yeah. Yeah, ButterFS is something different. You're thinking of ZFS, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that F2FS comes default on Android installs.
No,
no, it doesn't. Android, man.
No.
Yeah.
As far as I know, Android is exFAT.
exFAT.
I could have sworn some Android distro was starting to do that. I don't remember though. It's been a while.
Well, you're talking about like forks of Android that people are maybe.
My flash card on my Sony is always formatted to the exFAT because I formatted not long ago and it was exFAT.
Right.
I really haven't seen an advantage to doing ButterFS even on a server. You know, ext4 seems to work great.
Yeah.
Until
you have to go to something like ZFS, it's ext4 is just okay.
Yeah.
I heard one of the guys who came on the channel, was it last week, said basically that BTRFS or ButterFS or whatever it is was kind of the best thing to be in because its journaling system was absolutely so much better than ext4. And you know, I've never tried. Well, I tried it. I think I tried it once, but I'm not totally.
It also has it has some nifty snapshot feature. I know that's one of the big things.
Yes, that's it. So
if you have a single server,
you aren't kind of screwed when something goes wrong with your system. You can actually wind it back, and it has a snapshot of what's in the past, kind of thing.
Yeah. The problem with ButterFS is still not that stable. You still have people complaining that their file system has completely gone bye-bye on them. And,
have you tried it?
Huh? I have not. No.
No.
If I want,
isn't it default on?
I go with
default.
Yeah.
I make an image if I want.
The older ones like
isn't ButterFS default on OpenSUSE?
Is it?
Yes.
Have they changed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Not OpenSUSE. I think it's just SUSE. It's a default. OpenSUSE, you can if you use the automatic partitioning, I think it still uses ext4.
No, it does ButterFS as far as
it is ButterFS, but you can change it to ext4 should you wish.
Right. And you can change it in pretty much all the major distros. I mean, you can install ButterFS on anything. You can install XFS on any distro.
What do you call that Gen 2 distro? The easy one. What do you call it?
Oh, the easy one. There's a few. Sabian? Is that the one?
Sabian.
Or Calculate?
They use ButterFS for their install.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. It's an easy install, but at the end of the day, it's still Gen 2.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call any of them easy.
I love Gen 2. I absolutely adore Gen 2. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't like it that much. Never had luck installing it. I just gave up. Never had
installing
luck.
Installing it's fine. Maintaining it, it can be a chore sometimes.
So. I had problem installing the mainline, so I just stopped.
Yeah.
You know what I found really helpful recently was I had a whole bunch of drives of various sizes. So obviously I can't put them all into a RAID if there are different drives.
Yeah, you can. You can make
I did sort of. I used it's called MergerFS, and it pulled them all together nicely.
You can use MDIDM to RAID different size drives as a RAID, but you have to make it the smallest of the drives.
Right, but it's wasted space on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I didn't do that.
But CFS can do that as well.
Yep.
And it's a lot more supported since it's a server type for the
it's much
enterprise level enterprise level.
Yeah,
what is it?
RFS supports RAID better than ext4 does.
ZFS is also good for like multi-hard drive.
Yeah,
and it's like a lot more supported than any other such file system.
Right. ZFS is yeah, what we were thinking about earlier, all the BSDs default to. The reason that most of the Ubuntus don't offer it and they don't all ship with it is because of licensing issues.
I have ZFS on my NAS.
Yeah.
Really
ZFS may or may not be compatible with the GPL as far as licensing issues or something. Some reason why, like Canonical and Red Hat and all, they can't just ship it out of the box. So.
I have Fedora and ZFS.
Didn't Mac just introduce a new file system that's no longer?
Yeah, AFS, I believe it's called.
AFS, Apple File System? I hope not. Please tell me they do.
I believe something like that.
Oh, it is.
Did you be surprised?
Hey, Mac FS. That was it.
Just for them.
No, IFS. That would be.
Oh, here, I just heard recently that Corora's back on the, you know, they've got their act together again. So Corora is back on the market, which is great news for Fedora fans. You know, if you don't really want to do Fedora and would like something, you know, a bit more Manjaro-ish for Fedora, Corora's back on the market again.
Yeah, if you like a good GNOME distro, Corora has always been great.
Oh, they have, yeah.
Where Fedora out of the box with GNOME is so...
It's pile of pants.
Yeah, it's...
too default. It's too default,
right.
In my opinion.
I don't mind it, but...
Yeah, GNOME's not for me.
No. Well, you know, some people do better GNOME editions than others. Antergos actually makes a pretty nice one. If you guys like Archbase.
has a good
Manjaro are really good. Manjaro one is really good. It's really simple.
I actually don't mind the main Ubuntu edition. I know they, you know, make it kind of look like Unity with their little extensions, but it works for me. I mean, I can use it.
OS?
Yes, I have. I don't like it. I was kind of harsh on Pop OS when
Does Manjaro have an easy?
No, it's System 76's version of GNOME.
Pop OS needs one more O.
Now, those two still using Xorg, or are they?
No, they're using Wayland, I think.
Wayland, yeah.
They're using Wayland also. Okay.
Yeah. Really, really, really bad. I hate Wayland.
Wayland is coming up. It's still kind of new.
You know what I don't like because of all the hate that they generate? I never like to bring up Wayland unless I have to. I don't like to bring up Systemd unless I have to. And Pulse Audio, well, I bring up Pulse Audio all the time, but...
Actually, last time I ran Wayland, I almost pulled my hair out because I couldn't run gparted.
Uh-oh.
Your mic froze.
That's because we were just talking about all the graphical problems.
Yeah. I know
almost got DDoSed.
Fedora ships Wayland by default, but if you install the Nvidia drivers, then Nvidia will enable Wayland. But then in Fedora, it also breaks GDM now, so you have to use a different...
I thought... sorry to interrupt you, but I thought Wayland had sorted out the Nvidia shit. Have they not still sorted that out? Is it still a problem?
Yeah, it's still a problem.
It's still a problem.
I have an Nvidia card, and if I install any distro... Yeah, if I install any distro that defaults to Wayland, I usually go fall back to Xorg. Just because I get better performance. I just do. I mean...
Yeah.
I have to say, though, that I did install Devuan recently, and that was incredible. You know, going back to the Xinit, and it was fab. You know, without Systemd,
yeah,
it was so fast. That was the thing. It was really, really fast. It was incredible. Really good.
Well, I tell you, you know, since we mentioned Gentoo distros earlier. You mentioned Sabian. Sabian is Systemd, and it boots up really, really quick. But when you try Calculate, which uses OpenRC, also Gentoo based, it takes forever and a day sometimes to boot up.
You think
it's
so?
always been the
I've used Calculate, and it for me it's fine. It's really, in fact, Serge, who goes on about it all the time. I quite like it. I have no problem with Calculate.
It's okay. Yep. Well, I use system vlog, and I'm at the desktop within 6 seconds of booting. I have no problem.
Yep. Indeed works. That's
Saints just scored a late touchdown. Looks like they're gonna go up 45-35 with 3 minutes.
Give over about the bloody football.
when you want that man, good as well.
See, I was thinking about I was going to have to kill this stream to go watch the final 2 minutes, but I think we're good now. I don't have to worry about it. So. Got this one behind us.
There's no English rugby on because I'd be giving you scores all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like I work with a couple of guys from Pakistan. I guess they love watching cricket, but like their cricket games are like at 3-4 in the morning here. They're like, we're going to be up all night watching cricket. I'm like, what in the hell is cricket?
You're going to be there for days, Derek, on cricket. That game's gone for days.
See, I'm a
football. Whenever it is.
No, I'm a Formula One guy.
Yeah, me too. Well done, Hamilton, by the way. Just saying.
Now, I have watched some.
5 times.
Road champion.
5 times. That's all I'm saying, guys. 5 times.
5. Hamilton. The only person ahead of him now is Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, and that's on the target.
And that's on the target.
Yep.
I hope Hamilton loses everything from now on. I hate him.
Oh, he's just the best driver, you know.
Formula One
drive, that's all I'm saying.
A lot anymore, but I
think the last American that was in Formula 1 was called Speed, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
No, he was stuck in it.
I got a question, and I'm kind of afraid to ask it.
Go on.
What's the difference between QT and GTK?
They're totally two different frameworks.
Are you seated comfortably?
One at a time, please.
Take a while.
Well, if you want to just keep it brief, they're 2 different toolkits, basically.
Yeah. They're based on C. They're both different.
You go in to download a piece of software that asks you if you want the QT version or the JTK version.
Well, if you're on something like KT or LXQT, download the QT version. If you're on Cinnamon or any other GTK based, then you download the GTK because it integrates better.
Well, then I got to install a quarter of my software and change it.
QT is based on C++, which is more modern. GTK is based on C and C++, I think. It's a bit old in the tooth, and it's probably longer lived than it should have been, but it is still very usable. So QT is, I suppose, a newer system, and
I think it's safe to say most people would agree Qt is the better toolkit.
It is.
If you were starting from scratch, that's where you would start. GTK is
that's
old
why
school.
A lot of people who program in Qt prefer to program in Qt than they do in GTK.
Right.
I always think of GTK as kind of a mess.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
They had more.
It works.
They had more time to have people do more stuff with it. So.
Yeah, being a newbie, it's kind of like I've advanced a little bit ahead of newbie, but enough to be dangerous.
We're all newbies. I mean, you never grow beyond newbie. I mean, you're always going to not know something. So, I mean, there's plenty of stuff in Linux I don't know anything about.
I'm not afraid to ask.
Yeah.
If you're in a really old toolkit to mess with, try TK without the G, just TK toolkit. That's a really old one.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
TK.
TK.
Oh, TK? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really old one.
It is.
And wasn't the GTK toolkit originally designed for GIMP way back in the day?
Yeah.
Wasn't?
It was, yes.
So, interesting bit of trivia there. So
Wow.
Oh yeah, Derek, I know you told a lot of people not to do this, but I installed Arch on my friend's computer.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Good for you.
I have a job for you. Go and install it now.
Yeah, I love Arch.
The best operating system on the planet.
Arch is my favorite distro. Here's the problem with that. Now you're young. You have a little bit of free time. For those of us that are a little older, you're gonna have to support that machine, and you're gonna hate yourself later when they constantly call you to come fix things that are broken. So do yourself a favor.
Just so I can show just the next Python update, you'll enjoy yourself.
Yes.
Jacob, did you stick 4 matches between their toes?
Hang on. I've been running Arch for 4 years, 235 days, 3 weeks, and 15 hours, and it hasn't broken yet.
Yeah, I can do that too, but the problem is, it's not that things didn't break where you had to reinstall. It's the little things that you had to fix along the way.
Well, yes.
His friend that's brand new is not going to know.
That. That's easy. I mean, it's dead easy. And this is the thing about Arch, Gen 2, Slack. They teach you how to use your system.
Yeah, but is his friend committed to that? That's the problem. Did he ask his friend if that's what his friend wants to do? If his friend is not that interested in Linux, then that's a bad idea, right? That's the problem.
You're against.
Yeah. You can't force people into Linux.
Because what you run the risk of him being so put off by his first Linux experience that he runs back to Windows.
He wants to keep that guy on Windows.
The thing is,
was it Manjaro or was it just pure?
It was pure Arch. But like his computer was quote unquote broken, and it was broken for 4 months, and he's like, "Hey, do you think you could fix it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And the hard drive was broken, and so I just put a new hard drive in there for him, and then I just
you downloaded the Arch ISO and you started from scratch.
Yep, and he said, "Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I want to like learn code and learn Linux and stuff."
Okay, Jacob, how is he going to maintain that distribution when he doesn't know what to do?
Here's the problem. He didn't install it. That's the problem.
Look it up. Well, the Arch Wiki is the largest wiki on the planet, but I'm telling you now, most people don't comprehend it properly.
Yeah.
And what makes it worse is
everyone not to install Arch.
Yeah, if he wanted to run Arch, he needed to install it himself.
Exactly.
Not have you do it.
True,
yeah.
So go back, uninstall it, and stick Ubuntu on it or something like that.
Probably Manjaro, maybe. I don't know.
Manjaro would be good. Manjaro's good. Yes.
That would be
if I was
better.
going to put some random person on Linux, I would probably throw him into some kind of KDE situation.
I would do a stable distro. I would do something like any of the Ubuntu LTSs. Pick one of them back on 1804.
Mate.
Yeah, something. Yeah. Just
I
for a first
you,
distro,
just very quickly. 1810. Have you all tested it out? And what do you think?
I use it as my main driver.
You what?
I use
its main driver
as my main daily
right,
driver.
okay, and obviously you like it
a lot.
Which Ubuntu?
And what's different? Well, what's different between it and 1804?
And this is where I was going to go with it. I was going to say of all the distros, none of them changed, except for Lubuntu. Lubuntu had major changes, but the rest of them, why upgrade? 1804 is working for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there is a reason why you would upgrade, because in Arch there has been this massive Nvidia upgrade to the 410. We're nipping at the heels of Windows now, which is in 411. So we're getting the 410 drivers. In Ubuntu, you've only got this since the your .10 release came along, and I installed Ubuntu Studio, and I couldn't get over it. But you now have the 4.10 Nvidia drivers available, which are only really available on Arch.
That's why I just installed the binary from Nvidia's website. And
that you can't do it that way if you know what you're doing.
You can.
I think I'm using a PPA.
In the PPA,
There's
the
guides for
battery graphics PPA.
Yeah, but it was originally only on the LTS model. There was still only the 396 driver available.
It's also 410 available. Last time I checked.
Right, okay.
I need to upgrade them.
Down, but it was only the 396 when I last tried it.
Battery graphics driver PPA.
And I imagine I mentioned updating your machine or your distros to the newer versions, not just in Ubuntu, but all these other distros. Now, because of Proton, you're needing the latest kernels, the latest drivers. That probably is a big reason why some people might update to the latest, greatest version.
I upgraded because I upgrade every Ubuntu release.
But yeah, the only reason you would want to upgrade Ubuntu is for newer packages, because all Ubuntu is each time every 6 months, it's a newer snapshot of Debian testing. So you're just getting newer packages. That's the only reason.
I want to go back to a previous comment earlier, and I said that basically that I think that Linux still will be super fab on the desktop, and DistroWatch said no, it's not going to be. We're not going to get to the point where the Windows or Microsoft is at. Now that we have the major thing, the major playing card, Proton, and it probably will only get better. The main thing I think that has been holding back Linux, period, is the gaming thing. And possibly, the knowledge that, there is. I mean, you could go down the street and you could ask someone, do you know what Linux is? No. What? Well, if you told them what it is, that it's a free and open source operating system that you don't really need to run virus software on, and you can use it generally as a operating system, and if you're kind of more or less careful, you'll be fine.
Well, let's play this out. You tell me it's free. Free as in cost? Well, it must be cheap.
No, free as in
right.
Freedom to do what you want with.
The problem is, people don't care for that.
Free doesn't mean definitely does not mean cost.
Yeah.
I did not say free. The whole thing about Linux is it's freedom to do with what you want. So if you get a piece of operating system, then you can do whatever the hell you want with it, repackage it, and send it on to someone else as your own.
Well, people don't actually care for that. That's the reality.
So
most people forget that normal.
But the great thing about it is that everyone is looking at the code, and looking at code means.
And that's the better selling point, not the fact that it's free and open source.
Yeah, but most people don't care about that though. Like, so does
even
Proton,
open source don't care.
Proton can Proton run more than just games? I don't know.
Yes, it can.
No, Proton.
Right now it doesn't, but it will eventually. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing to me, because the first thing, the biggest thing that I come up against when I suggest Linux to someone, because there are people that it makes sense.
Microsoft Office, Adobe Photoshop,
Photoshop and Office. So if you can run those two damn programs, then we're set.
Yeah, and Proton may eventually get there.
Tell me, why do you need Microsoft Office?
No, you don't need it. It's just people.
Well, some people do need it.
And 99% of the world support it. It really is. That's the reason. I keep Windows installed. One reason to keep Windows installed, it's Office, because it's 1,000 times better than LibreOffice, and it's 1,000 times more support.
I don't know. Why is it 1,000 times better?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Whether it's better or not, I won't get into that. But if I worked in a office building with 2,000 other people and they all use Microsoft Office, I kind of would have to use Microsoft Office too. That's just the reality of it. I mean, I wouldn't be happy about it.
You understand what it means using Office.
Well, use the online version then.
365, the subscription.
Yeah, but it doesn't have everything you need.
Yeah,
what is everything you need? What do you?
It's not even about.
I go to IT school, and one of the subjects we have is using it's using the what is called different tools to do different jobs.
Yes.
And one of the things we have to use is Word or one of its equivalent to do a lot of stuff. And most stuff I can do.
Yeah, you haven't told me anything.
Look, I can't
told
because 99% of the class I haven't still done. That's the problem. I haven't still done.
You can do 99.9% of the stuff in LibreOffice.
Yeah, but then when I want to
so
transfer it to someone else,
1% that you can't do.
Problem. It isn't problem I can't do. It's problem when I want to transfer it to someone else.
Right.
When I put it on a flash drive, put it to someone else. You know what happens?
Save it as a
Word document.
I did that. I had a
But
whole
I've done this.
Everything.
I'll help Big Pot out on this one.
Out.
Because I've done this. You save it as a format that they should be able to handle. You'd be surprised how many people can handle when you save something in a different format that they're not expecting it in.
But hang on a second. LibreOffice allows you to save in.
Yeah,
but it comes out of garbage.
Word 2000.
Yeah, I have.
Or
I had
Word
that.
whatever.
When I was
I'm on your side here. I think LibreOffice is the better product, but I'm telling you, I've given people files and formats that they just couldn't handle for some reason in Microsoft Office.
I still think ODT is a better format than all of them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It can do DocX. But the problem is that it's still not 100% compatible because certain things will be laid out differently in Microsoft Office compared to what OpenOffice should think it is in the same document format.
That's the formatting can be all off, especially the presentation documents. Yeah.
One thing I did notice with Office, Microsoft Office, is if you use a different printer to the one that you write your letter in, it will render differently if you use a different printer.
Right.
That's true, and that's in its own software. So getting everything formatted just right is a pain. If you're going across the same office that shares, say, a printer, say it's just an HP whatever laser, then you're fine because all the letters will obviously. But if you're going to a different office that has a brother printer and that uses a slightly different layout, the letter comes out differently in the WYSIWYG.
Well, then just use the open line version of Microsoft, which is, easily accessible to.
Well, it is because that's even
one problem I had
does that.
Is when I made
my
work for school, it was like work.
Okay.
At the end of the 5-year schooling, I had to make a big project and had to write about it. When I was doing it in LibreOffice, because it was based on Linux, and when I brought it with my USB to the printer, the school printer, it came garbage. Basically, it came garbage. Just save
what way? But when you didn't tell, what way did you save it?
DocX. I saved it DocX 3 different ways because I didn't trust LibreOffice.
Right. Okay.
Right.
All three versions came garbage. Had to redo everything in Word, like titles, stuff like that. Everything had to be redone because it came totally
so back to the original point. Like, I think that the day that we can answer yes to the question of can you install Office and can you install Photoshop, I think that'll change some shit.
Yeah.
And you would think
professional software.
Tensor, I think that will happen fairly soon because I think that Linux is moving. I mean, obviously we've got the game thing. Proton is just wine within Steam. End of. Right?
Not
so
really.
It's not anything major.
I think Office is going to be
so basically we've got the gaming thing sort of sorted out, and that people from Windows environment now can run games, which has always been the Achilles heel of Linux.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the stuff
again, I would say even
all prescription items.
It won't help because the biggest problem is availability in stores because of Linux. Because
on the machines pre-installed.
99% of people
you just download it.
Yeah, but tell your secretary who doesn't know shit about computers to download an ISO, make a USB, burn a USB, then install Linux. She will first question she will ask you to be, why it is an ISO.
Yeah, I've actually told people that, and that's usually the first question. What is an ISO?
Second question, how to burn a USB.
Okay,
Third question,
so,
how to install. Look, I worked in a...
What we need is a Linux shop selling Linux computers.
No, we need that. But personally, I think we need major brands to support Linux in big way. Yeah, basically, we need
and probably the most gorgeous desktop environment on Linux is
Plasma.
No.
XFCE.
No.
Terminal.
No.
Deepin.
No.
Hey guys, Joe.
Deepin is probably the most gorgeous desktop.
Okay.
I would say it's the most gorgeous desktop.
I would agree. Joe, your audio is not working, by the way. We can't hear you, Joe. So, gotcha. All right.
He's working on it.
Yeah.
Also, besides that, we need availability.
Next is Plasma.
Wait, Elementary is pretty attractive, too.
No, I can't stand. Don't mention Elementary, please.
Oh,
everybody,
Elementary.
No,
everybody gets mad when I mention Elementary.
I think Elementary has acquired taste.
I hate Elementary.
Pantheon is really ugly. Pantheon is really ugly.
It's just freaking Mackie kind of nonsense.
Yeah. I hate it the same way I hate cinema. Too much trying to be the other side.
Yeah, but again, like I said, Cinnamon serves a purpose. Pantheon serves a purpose. It's not for me. Neither one of them are for me. I'm not using either one of them, but I understand where they're going.
Window manager nonsense thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, better.
That's great.
Yeah,
but
sorry about that. I was going to say to the comment before about a secretary loading an ISO. How many secretaries will know how to even put a Windows disk in? Load that up.
Yeah,
and find all the
I want to comment on that. I worked in a shop that was repairing computers. People came with their own USBs with Windows and asked me to install Windows because I didn't know how to install Windows.
Oh my god.
The problem
is
because people don't read. That's the problem. Normal people don't read their computers. They just do next, or they just freeze. The first time they have to read, it's freeze.
There's two things that are needed to get Linux out there: is availability and education.
Yeah.
Bottom line, that's what it comes down to. Is it's marketing to start out with, and yes, you got to start getting them on the shelves. And there are some of these bigger companies are starting to put them on their machines, and you're seeing it more and more. And I think because we see the drive of where Dell, Lenovo, all of them are starting to. It's not, for whatever reason, it's still not as publicized yet. And
even beyond,
it takes money to get it there.
Yeah. In my opinion, we need number parity from big companies like HP, Dell, Acer, Asus. We need number parity with Windows.
We need cheap laptops. Is what we need.
Windows computers, there needs to be 10 Linux computers.
But to the argument about gaming, not everybody's a gamer. I agree with the comment because that's the first thing people say who don't really understand or know what Linux is well, can it run, can I use a Word document, or can I do my Photoshop? Because
can I play Fortnite?
The first two things you always hear, because the average consumer is doing daily tasks. Not everybody's a gamer. Gamers are kind of the cherry on the cake, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that gamers are really, really, really knowledgeable about computers.
No.
They aren't.
I worked in a tournament, a gaming convention of sorts, like small one in my country, and I was fixing computers, and one guy asked me why his FPS wasn't 300. The problem was we locked every system to 200 because we had 144 Hz monitors, and he wanted 300 FPS just to because otherwise he can't play.
Did you try to explain to him that the difference between 200 FPS and 300 FPS, like the human can't even distinguish?
The problem was between 200 and 300 didn't actually matter because display could only show 144 hertz, basically 144 FPS.
That's correct.
So
we still have a problem.
You for 1 hour.
The problem is, and
so I just unlocked it.
We have a problem. We have one computer manufacturer, System 76, and they have gone out to do the Ubuntu thing. We have 4 in the UK that are doing the same thing. We have Dell, who have, for some reason, kept their XPS stuff under the bonnet. You have to go looking for it, but they don't advertise that, you know, we're selling a computer that is, you know, preloaded with, you know, a Linux operating system and designed to actually run it properly.
And I've heard people say that
a major company is not going out there and going, look, hang on a second, you have all this Windows stuff. By the way, we have one that actually does Linux as well. But they don't
I've heard
say
of people.
that.
Yeah, I've heard of people say they've called Dell and asked them, you know,
Yes,
you're interested in a machine,
and
hey,
test them, and they said, no, we don't do it. And I said, yes, you do.
Right.
It's not profitable.
I have a really good answer to all this.
5%.
Well, the other company, there is another American company too, Puget Systems up in Washington too.
Yeah,
there's a few small companies.
They're so high end though, you know,
Yeah.
and that's part of the problem because those are going to be more people that are doing enterprise stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but on mainstream, we should understand that marketing is important. How much money you throw into marketing, and Linux just isn't marketable enough. You must understand that because if it's 5% on desktop, you have somewhere like 1%
argument,
probably less people who would buy it. Basically, that's not worth marketing.
No, here's the thing: I can understand that argument if it was based on something small, but Dell to hide this under the carpet.
It's not hiding it under the carpet.
Come on, I mean that's just what's the point in doing it in the first place?
With a Windows computer, they can pawn it off to Microsoft if they can't fix it. With a Linux computer, they're stuck with it.
The problem
I don't agree with that.
Because if they
comes down to
Ubuntu stuff, they can pawn off to Ubuntu.
It comes to money. At the end, it comes to money.
And if people don't understand what they're buying, they're not going to buy it. That's why. And that's the thing,
but then why sell it?
Education.
Why sell it? Because they make a SKU. They give you an option to buy that SKU. But
the people buying it,
because that's not important.
No, the reason they sell is because the people that are buying them are the ones that understand it.
Yeah, it's actually like
the XPS 13
those who understand it will
is one
also
of their highest selling laptops, and it's a Linux computer.
Yeah,
but who is the XPS designed for?
Marketing.
The XPS is designed for developers, though. That's a different kind of crowd buying that machine.
Yeah.
They know what Ubuntu is.
And that's
will buy Linux versions will find it
for developers, even though it's a Linux machine, and it's for still the masses.
You do not understand one thing, K-Pax. You don't understand one thing. It's all about money and marketing. The catch is in that they don't want to.
I used to own a business.
They don't want to spend money for something
I used to run a business.
that won't have a return.
He makes a point, though. If Dell could make money off of it,
they can monetize. They will.
Probably
they're counting marketing.
0.5% of people buying it.
That you're hiding in the back end.
Catch is people who would buy a Linux version of the laptop are sure to find it because they actually know what they're doing. That's the actual thinking, because they just don't want to be spending money on marketing they know they won't get a return on.
The problem is the price point. It's the price point that's the problem. Yeah, I can go into Best Buy right now.
Problem because Microsoft paid Dell not to promote Linux.
We don't have the budget machines, right? We don't have the cheap
system except their own.
Yeah.
Derek, you know I've got that test machine. That thing's not even a year old. I bought that Dell Inspiron specifically for testing distros on it, that's a sub $400 machine.
Right.
It's probably around $400 now because I chose to leave the primary 1 terabyte drive that came with it in there. I took out the DVD player, which I don't ever use anyway on that machine, or I wouldn't, and I put in a tray and put in an SSD, and that's where I run my Linux stuff off of, and I still barely have $400 in that thing.
Hey, that Toshiba satellite behind me, I bought new from Best Buy for $350 like 4 years ago. And that's the problem. We don't have those kind of machines running Linux at the store.
My system
So they don't have to be pushing XPS with them.
No.
Well, that's my point. Is Dell doesn't have to push just XPS with Linux on it. They can do the Inspirons because that runs just.
Yeah.
It will kill people like System 76 because the Dell Inspiron, or sorry, the XPS is probably better than what System 76 is pushing out at the same
I would expect,
money.
yeah. Well, they can compete a lot better in that space because Dell is a huge company, right?
Advertise it out loud.
All right.
Did you guys see that Walmart has their own
is a mom and pop
computers now?
Yeah, and actually pretty good build, at least what I've seen.
Yeah, they're gaming.
And I'd like to see them survive and grow more than what they have. They're doing a wonderful job, and they're going in the right direction. And yes, Dell and Lenovo and the rest of them started really pushing the Linux machines, would it hurt them to a point? Possibly, because it still comes down to the diehard Linux users and community and enthusiasts, like the Chris Fishers of the world and everybody else that uses them. They're going to say,
what's the point in doing it in the first place if you're not going to advertise it?
Because development of such systems
is hiding it in the back and saying, look, girls, I'm sorry, we've made this absolutely fabulous skirt for you, but you can get the normal stuff in the front of the shop, and you have to get the really good stuff and jump into the back of the shop, but we're not actually advertising it.
Garth, they're not hiding it.
Stupid.
They're not hiding it.
It doesn't make any sense.
So much. It's basically free to them to load Linux on there. So they just make a SKU, just make a version of laptop. Basically, they load Linux on it, and they sell it like one in every month, maybe one. But
they're just targeting a niche market right now.
Yeah, and that's why they're
what they're
marketing
looking to do with it at this point. And I think it's kind of testing the waters, kind of thing.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Also that, but they probably think that those who will buy Linux laptop, those will know how to find it.
Right.
Because those are probably computer and client and probably developers.
But does it not seem silly to you that they're not advertising it properly? Really?
Well, as I said before, that's a Microsoft issue.
Yeah.
The reason why they're not advertising it is because they're paid millions of dollars not to advertise any other operating system, so they put it on the back page.
No, but I mean, why make the product in the first place if you're not going to advertise it?
We don't know the ins and outs of these licensing deals with Microsoft either. I mean,
Second one is that you must understand that advertising space is quite a lot of money, and giving something that won't have you a big enough return, throwing advertising on that is just stupid. Look, it's easy enough.
Do you remember?
But haven't Microsoft relaxed their kind of thing? Didn't they release a whole pile of licenses and
they released a lot of their
and everyone's now going, yes, Microsoft is really nice and they're part of the open source community.
Everything is for the money.
They are a bunch of wankers.
Sure, they did dump a load of their patents, all of their patents.
Yes.
But that's only licensed
it was something like
to
6,000
a certain
or
few.
60,000 or something.
A certain group of people they license those.
But it's only to a certain amount of
to those who are part of ONI,
like Suzy, Red Hat, and so on.
Yeah.
Big Brothers.
IBM. Yeah. Those who are part of ONI. Others are still under the same problem as always.
Yeah.
Attack.
Do you remember?
On the other side here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On the other side, in the enterprise environment, I'm a desktop technician for an aerospace company, and I've had a couple engineers now have us build them a Red Hat box, and we'll build it to them. We'll get it to their desktop, and then we'll say, "What are you doing? What do you want done with this? You know, what do you want for a username? What do you want? What services do you need?" They're like, "Oh, we just want Linux. We don't know anything about it." You know, so.
Yeah, it's actually that computer and client people will go to Linux, but everything else will give it a wide berth. That's what Marcina said. Those who are computer and client will think it's hard. It's that's the problem. People think it's hard. Actually, I have a lot of people.
The thing is, they want it just because it's Linux. They have no idea what it's
they
doing
are computer inclined. That's the difference. They are computer inclined. They are more likely to use it than, let's say, a secretary. Secretary will rather use Windows than that because she doesn't care.
Secretary doesn't care what OS she's using.
Why do we keep picking on the secretary? This is the second time we brought up the secretary.
Secretary, as long as she's got an icon on her desktop, double click and start
whatever.
People,
I have a friend.
You have to rest easy.
Yeah, hold up.
Is back in the building.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
He's been back for a few days, yeah.
Yes.
What you got, Joe? Joe was trying to say
something. I had a friend that needed a computer, so I sent her my wife's 2010 Dell. I think it was a Vostro, if I remember right. And I put, originally I had put, I think it was one of the Linux Mint flavors on there. And then I think I put something else on her, or vice versa. I can't remember. But either way, she's been on Linux on that laptop. And that was probably a year ago. And it's amazing what she has. Now, this is just a lady that you took off the street, basically. We had no knowledge to it, who I spent a couple of times walking her through things.
Yeah.
And since then, she's actually went ahead and figured stuff out on her own. She's had a couple of minor questions, and she goes, "Oh, that's what I thought, and that's what I did," you know. And she runs thermal printers on it. She runs whatever. And she's been able to figure it out. So that to sit there, and I think what it comes down to is the natural fear of change and not understanding something.
Yeah.
But I think the more that you see Microsoft breaking people's stuff, that's good for us. But the problem is
not really.
Come down to actually, sitting here.
Actually, reality is it can happen to Linux as well.
Right. But complaining about what Linux doesn't do, and that I think what it's going to come down to is, instead of just Linux fest in this part of the country or that part of the world or whatever, we need to have more and more small groups, just like at home shows or whatever, people doing presentations and getting the exposure out there, even if it's not a big company. If it's somebody who's used this and wants to show their tech off, that's what's going to be the kind of stuff that's going to get it out there and show that and focus on the positives of it and not just the negatives. And yes, Linux can break. We know that. But the reality of it is it doesn't go in there and wipe out every files, leaving empty folders.
Joe, do you remember, what do you call him? The guy from who did the massive YouTube channel, still does it. What's his name?
Linus?
PewDiePie.
Part of the Linux was part of Red Hat. Oh God, what's his name? Did what I hate about Linux kind of videos. Linux.
I remember that.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I forgot his name. Anyway, he actually, was it 2 years ago, he turned around and said, "Has anyone got a bit of hardware, you know, in the farming community that runs Arch?" And I sent him a message saying, "We have a milking machine for cows that runs Arch Linux." It does, because it was down to me. So we actually had this Linux machine that actually would milk cows, and originally it was run on, I think, it was run on a Windows machine. So it would milk cows, and we switched because the licensing, because the Northern Irish government weren't prepared to put up the money for another license. So we switched to Linux, and lo and behold, I stuck Arch on it, and then we had several other people who managed to write the software. And I wrote this into Brian, and he said, if anyone can tell me, does Arch milk a cow? Well, I wrote in and said, yes, it does. Only he didn't pick it up that thing, but he picked it up later and laughed about it. It was quite funny. Anyway, Linux is in the environment, and this is the whole thing about Linux. It's in the environment, it's on your desktop, it's on your flight when you go, anywhere, it's on your TV screen, and it's brilliant. And anytime I go, I had to use Windows 7 today.
People from around the world.
Let's mute that. All right.
I was in Windows 7 today, and I had this fear thing. It was horrible, and it's just horrible being in the Windows environment, having been away from it for so long. It's horrible.
Yeah, you find it limiting. I find Windows so limiting every time I have to use it.
Yeah.
Well, you get used to using what you know, and if it's been a while, yeah. So.
Yeah, or like what you were saying before with that woman. My wife is taken to Linux quite well. I mean, I don't have any Windows machines in my house. All our laptops have Linux. She's done really well with it. Actually, she knows how to get around just as well as any Windows machine.
So what are you using?
I tend to install KDE Neon.
Right.
Because they maintain their own Ubuntu.
Yeah. I've used KDE Neon. The only thing I dislike about Neon is well, this is the point that I don't understand about Neon. KDE Neon has a upgradable plasma desktop, but the back-end operating system stagnates. So if you're an Arch, you get the exact same thing, but everything is kept up to date.
Right.
Within 6 months, your back end is going to be out of date, and the bits and pieces that need to be the apps, whatever you want. I remember using Neon for ages. Just degrade because they're now out of date. Ubuntu's now crept up to whatever. You're still on the LTS, and it's not upgrading. Whereas you still have a desktop environment that's upgrading. I find it really strange. Why didn't they do? Why didn't they do a rolling release? That would have made much more sense to me.
Well, they do have a rolling release.
They keep their own repositories.
Yeah, it's one of the versions that they have, but I don't know. I just always assumed that they were constantly merging from Ubuntu.
No, it just drags. The whole system drags because of the LTS model. The LTS model is 5 years. 5 years is a long time in Linux. Even 1 year is a long time in Linux, because by 6 months, everything else is upgraded. But
stability is hell of a better than rolling release.
We were talking about CentOS earlier. The reason people run CentOS on servers is 10 years of support. I mean, there's people that want that.
It's a server distribution.
Right.
Difference.
Even on desktop, if I have to anyone else than just me, I go with anything LTS. Even nowadays, I go
with rolling.
Even if, let's say, I install to a friend, I will specifically install 18.04.1 just to install on his laptop or his computer, because LTS, stability, all that stuff.
LTS doesn't mean stability. In fact,
yes,
I have had more problems with LTS releases
the point of LTS
with
stability.
Rolling releases.
I had a lot of problems learning this, especially.
There have been more problems in the LTS model than there have been in the rolling release model.
Well, here's why I picked Neon. The reason I picked Neon a long time ago was because I wanted a distro that had a really easy pathway to. Basically, I wanted an LTS release that had the most up to date KDE, because I wanted to have the most.
Arch has the most up to date KDE.
Yeah, the problem is,
Arch
the problem is
Neon exactly the same. So when you get the most up to date Plasma,
with the rolling release.
You can't have it both ways, though. Here, if you want a stable release, you install something like Debian Stable or Ubuntu LTS, and you're stuck with that desktop version. If you want the latest and greatest of everything all the time, you go rolling release. Some people are looking for this magical utopia, this unicorn distro that's both the latest and greatest software, but it's LTS. That doesn't exist. You can't have stable and rolling. That's
exactly correct.
So.
That's why I go for stable LTS.
You'd be better off. I think you'd be better off with Kubuntu, to be honest.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I was using that. Before.
Yeah.
Well, guys, the model itself is based within the system, so you have a LTS model based on an LTS version of Plasma, so everything sort of stays the same. Whereas Neon is kind of, it's fragmented because of this bit that it wants to keep keeping up with something, yet the OS itself is going to get so out of date. By the time it updates, it's so out of date, it's ridiculous.
And that's why people usually do a clean install.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. The stream's been going for a little over 2 hours. I need to jump off because
gonna get pizza in 3 minutes.
Yeah, because I've been at work all day. I did this. I actually still have to eat dinner, and then I've got to be up. And then I've got to be up again early tomorrow for another early and long day.
I want to thank DistroTube for doing this.
Yep, appreciate it.
Yeah,
these are fun.
Awesome.
These have become like the highlight of my week. Actually, these chats. These are because there's always good topics, especially sometimes strange stuff that comes up, and it's always interesting discussion. I know the people that watch it in the chat usually enjoy themselves too. I want to thank everybody that's also hanging out in the chat watching us. Let's get a last word from everybody before we go, though. Climby, what you got for us?
These are fun as always. Love doing this. Couple things I wanted to mention. I've heard Dreaming Wolf in Big Daddy's Linux Live mention this before, but there's actually an Office suite for Linux. It's actually a multi-platform called SoftMaker. Now it's proprietary, it's closed source, and it's not free. I think you pay like $100 for the license, but I hear it has a lot better Microsoft Office compatibility than LibreOffice does out of the box. So if that's something you might, and I think there might be a trial too you can try just to see if it works, and if that works for you, that might be an option under Linux maybe.
Okay.
And also, I could kind of understand, because as far as the FPS cap goes, the reason why he might have wanted that uncapped, even if a display refresh rate's only 120 hertz, uncapped FPS will still give you a faster frame buffer. It won't register on the screen refresh, but it can give you, and we're talking depending on what we're dealing with, milliseconds to nanoseconds of additional screen buffer. But some people can actually, if they've been playing the game for long enough.
It actually doesn't help. Been doing gaming and stuff like that for a long time, and if you choose the right FPS, you actually get quite. You must choose the one that even if frame dips, it still doesn't go below that 144. Otherwise, it doesn't help you anything. Actually, because the catch is that actually those frames that doesn't show, they just skipped over. They don't care. The game, the screen doesn't care for them, and that's actually the big problem, because you can actually miss something
Right. And just quickly in the chat, somebody was asking me, do people in real life call me DT? My initials of my name are actually DT. Yes, I planned that out. DistroTube and my real name is both DT. So that's all. So the logo works in two different ways. So thank you, Ali. Give us a last word, sir.
Yep. Good stream again. I've been quiet most of it. I'll just let you carry on chatting, but it was all good.
Yeah, was fun.
Enjoy today. Thank you very much for the stream. Looking forward to next week.
Yeah, we'll catch you. All right. Chris.
Thanks for everything. Sorry I got a bit quiet there. I've been doing other stuff as well. But it's cool. Nice and informative. And also about the FPS, the unlocked FPS, I think what you should have done, it's all in his mind, right? So you just
most of it, yeah.
Bake it so it says that it has like.
I was thinking,
yeah.
He's using the screen counter, so I didn't have time dealing with that.
And I forgot we had two Chris's here, so let's back up to the other Chris and get a last word.
Okay. Yeah, well, it happens a lot sometimes. But, no, this was, it was great that I was actually able to come in on an evening chat like this. Normally I'm off playing RPG games with my friends and can't make the evening one. But I mentioned a couple weeks ago I was going to start doing a vlog of my LPIC studies. I have not started doing that. I started the LPIC studies, but I promise I will get that vlog going, seeing if anybody else wants to keep up to date and stuff like that. So.
Cool. We'll be looking for it. All right, Dan, you got last words for us, sir? Dan, your audio is not working, Dan. Yeah, it happens. Let's go to Big Pod. We'll come back to Dan in a minute. Big Pod, you got a last?
Great chat, and a bit of self-advertisement. I finally did my first Linux video, so check me out.
I will definitely take a look at it.
I have posted a link in the Zoom chat, and if Distro you wanna.
Matter of fact, I think I'd already subscribed to your channel. I just haven't watched the video. Yeah, I've got.
I made two videos. First one is my thoughts on Linux, why Linux desktop fails. Second one is
that's going to be a popular one.
Second one is Fedora 29. My quick glance at it.
Yeah, all right.
I took your model of your installations for the.
Go for it. It's GPL'd, so you're good.
Otherwise, yeah, great stream. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Dan, we got audio yet? No. No, Dan. No. Jacob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Let's get a last word.
Yeah, I enjoyed this chat, and everyone who's watching and listening. If you haven't already, subscribe to Derek. He's an awesome YouTuber. Great guy.
Thanks.
Really nice talking with all of you. And if you don't use Linux, install it right now.
I like that. That's a great last word. All right. Garth, you got the last word for us.
Oh, you be. I want to say Linux is superb. It is probably the best OS we have. I want to thank you lot, everyone, for this thing. And the great thing is Steam is running Windows games at last. It is Proton has made Linux a little bit better than it was. So yeah, on that note, adios.
All right, thank you. All right, Tom, you got a last word for us? Tom, you there?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, can you? Yeah. So thanks for the stream, and everybody keep fighting the good fight. And,
all right.
Yep.
Linux is awesome. Oh, and everybody, be on the lookout for a new awesome distro called Temple OS.
It's not that new, but okay. It's also not that awesome. I've looked at it. All right, Joe.
Well, thank you again for these types of streams, for the friendships that have come out of this, because this is truly a great community. And I haven't felt so passionate about something like this in such a long time, as you can tell. Yeah. And, you know, in fairness,
change your life, huh?
The operating system itself is a good operating system. Yeah. It's a business model that, pardon the French, sucks, and I hope that doesn't demonetize you. But the reality of it is I think why there is so much frustration from us in the Linux community is because we are making such strides. We're getting so much closer, as you said, Proton and other things, and it's like it's right there. You can taste it. So I think it's just a matter of patience. I think we're going in the right direction, and I think people like us talking about it, and hopefully, yes, you do need to talk about the problems. That's how problems get fixed, but I think we need to also talk more in a positive light to also get more people interested. And, you know, God bless Linux. And everybody that's involved.
I think you need more people like Derek.
Yes.
Derek is awesome.
Thanks, guys. Blaine, are you muted or can you talk?
Guaranteed I got a great workout. And don't forget, trampolines can be dangerous.
Okay, Blaine, you've got some audio issues.
Every year in the U.S.
All right, let's go to Wraith. Wraith, you got a last word for us. We still got a TV blaring in the background for Blaine.
Main word for me, DT, is keep up the good work, mate. You know, it's showing a lot of people about, you know, newer things with Linux and some of the distros that don't get mentioned elsewhere. And keep up the good work. And as I say, I wish I could have been here earlier, but I was broadcasting.
That's fine. You know, I never know when I'm going to do these things too, because my schedule is always changing. Sadly, like I never know what I'm doing week to week.
I've tried to get in pretty much every other Sunday recently, so it's not been too bad.
All right, let's go back to Dan. Dan, your audio if it's finally working.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
All right.
I can barely hear you now. Well,
that's
anyways,
fine.
It's been fun. I've had a really good time here. I'm glad you have these every week. I hope to come back next week. And we have a really good crowd here tonight. And God bless you all.
All right. Appreciate that, Dan. Thanks for hanging out. Thank everybody also in the YouTube chat. We had a lot of good discussion actually in the chat too. This was fun. Had a good crowd. Before I go, my last word. This show made possible. And some Carlos, Chris, David, Leor, Rob, Tony. Show's also brought to you by that list of the fine ladies and gentlemen that support the channel. You guys enjoy the channel, please consider supporting DistroTube over on Patreon. All right, guys, I'm out. Peace.
Peace.
All right.
Oh, dear. Long day.
Yeah. I lost the mic. Now I lost the